The Simply Successful program offers stress management tools for the lifespan, so small children, adolescents, or adults can be simply successful.
Hello, I'm Deb Timmerman.
And I'm Beth Tuttle. Welcome to the Simply Successful program. We teach stress management skills that build resilient kids, successful families, and thriving communities.
Our guest this morning is Carmen Perdamo. She is a licensed bilingual therapist, and her business is Mi Casita Counseling Services in Grand Rapids. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
So we invited Carmen on the show today to talk about the importance of a strong family unit in the home. Mm-hmm. We've had conversations about how you can do all the stress management tools in the world, but if you don't have a sound family foundation, you are going to, what, Carmen?
It's just not going to work.
It's not going to happen.
No, you're going to get frustrated.
So tell our listeners what a strong family unit is, how it operates, what it needs to be functional.
A strong family unit would have all the needs of the members being met in a healthy way. It would not be focused on just one individual person as the sole cause of all the problems in the family, because in a family that's usually not how it works.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you've got a little guy who just can't seem to get it together in school, and we're looking at what's wrong with him versus what's wrong with the whole family.
Yes. Unless the child has been in trauma, which that will change behavior too, or an accident, or if it's a biological thing such as autism, the family unit is what we look at to see what's going on with mom and dad, siblings, the home life where they're living at, things like that.
So how would you go about doing an assessment in a family to figure out how you're going to work with them, what the approach is?
I need to know who the primary caregiver is, who is in the child's life day in and day out, what their struggles are, if they have any struggles, and the siblings. Who else lives in the home? Is it just siblings? Is it aunt? Is it an uncle? Who's all there, and what's their role and function in the household?
What are some of the signs that the family unit might not be functioning as it's meant to?
Some of the signs in a child is this child goes to school, he's distracted, lashing out at other kids, maybe at the teacher. Maybe the opposite would be withdrawing, where the child just doesn't want to interact with absolutely anyone. And the other one would be flight, where this kid takes off during school hours and no one can find him. So there's fight or flee. One of those the kid is going to do, and it's going to be real obvious.
What you're describing is the stress response.
What happens if you are working with a family, say it's a mom, dad, and a son, and one of them, the dad doesn't really want to take part? They don't think they are the problem, or, how do you work with that?
It's really hard when the parent doesn't want to be involved. Usually the children are a reflection of what's going on in the home. And a lot of the times they just say, it's this kid. If we can only change this kid, we would have a perfect home. That's not true. They are letting out what they're feeling, and what they're feeling is basically in the house because that's where they're at most of the day.
How do you get parents to recognize that they could be part of the problem and that they are definitely part of the solution?
That takes a little bit of time because some parents, if we have an angry child, more likely than not, there's going to be an angry parent. Whether if he's in the home or out the home, there will be someone that the child is learning these behaviors from and then showing them to the world.
So it could be a grandma or a grandpa or a babysitter or a caregiver. It doesn't necessarily have to be mom and dad, but that's why you do an assessment to figure out who's in and out of that child's life.
It could also be a cousin. It could be the neighbor next door. It's like, where is this child at during the day, and when do you mostly see these behaviors happening? Is it always after they come back from grandma's? Is it after they play with the neighbor? Is it maybe after they come back from a weekend with grandpa, grandma, or the aunt or uncle? Where is this coming from? We got to figure that part out.
All behavior has meaning and has an origin. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about that aspect of counseling?
Yeah. Even when a baby is first brought home from the hospital, it will cry for food, diaper change, sleep, attention, and as we get older, we still do these things, certain behaviors, to get our point across, to get our needs met. As adults, we know how to do it in an appropriate manner, but as children, we do it the fastest way possible to get the most attention possible right now, this moment.
Well, most adults know how to do it.
That's
Because
true.
we still have some people that have those behaviors that they've acquired as children, and they've never quite learned how to manage them, and they're having a challenge functioning in their work environment or maybe in their own family environment.
Mm-hmm.
I think for parents, when a child's having a temper tantrum, it's hard for them to look at it and step back and think, I wonder what's going on or what's making him sad. They're just looking at it as a kid acting out. He's not getting what he wants. He's being naughty. And we don't step back and think about that.
Yeah, and then I guess a second part of that would be, is the parent able to maintain control during these situations? Because if we have a child that's escalating in behavior and aggressiveness, we don't need a parent who's also escalating in their response, because the child's going to win. They have nothing to lose, and they could care less who hears them or what gets destroyed. So in that situation, the parent needs to know how to calm themselves down so that the child eventually learns from the parent to soothe themselves.
So that's something that you would help them with in counseling.
Yeah, I would help the parent because I know how stressful it is. I have an autistic child, and when they lose it, you want to quickly lose it too, but you got to reel yourself in and get in control so the situation will be maintained under control.
Is there a typical age that families start looking at counseling for their children? How does that process begin?
For counseling for children, I think normally around like 5 or so is when parents start looking for ways to help their child. Younger than that, it's kind of hard because they don't speak much. But when it's 5 years old, the family has to be involved because they're so little. A lot of what goes on in their life they can't control. So they need an adult that's on board, that's willing to say, I will go with you through these necessary changes for you so that you can be better and I'm on your side. And that's how we get it to work.
Are most referrals made by families themselves, or do some of these behaviors start manifesting in school and then parents don't know what to do so they reach out?
A lot of the times it's school stuff. Yeah, because a lot of kids when they're at home, they're kind of in a safer situation where they're in their room or they're on the couch. But when they go out into a school and there's all these other kids and all these other adults, whatever's going on, they're easily triggered into saying, you can't tell me what to do, you shut up. And then the parents are saying, what's going on? They're good in the home, but when they get to school, they explode.
How do you deal with those school fears?
Well, usually in a school setting, there should be a social worker or something like that. And if the behaviors are extreme, there should be like an IEP or something in place to help the child and let staff know what he's going through and what the parents are working on, what the therapist is working on, so they're all on board.
So an IEP is an individualized education plan?
Yeah.
And those are triggered by schools to help kids manage behaviors. I always kind of think of them as the investigative process to figure out if they can have services. Is that a good description?
Yeah, usually those are for kids who have been diagnosed with maybe ADHD or things like that.
Sometimes those issues don't come out, though, until a child goes to school.
Yes.
So that would be the teacher would ask for you to check with your physician. How do those get started?
Check with the physician, get evaluated by a therapist, figure out, because when you have your child in your home and there's no one to compare him to, or just your siblings, you think, oh, he's okay. Then when you send them into school and there's 25 other children that same age and your child is acting differently, he's going to raise a couple of red flags like, what's going on with this kid? Can we get him evaluated to see if there is something we should be working on?
As a parent, if I recognize that my child is starting down the road of having behaviors that are not manageable, what's the best thing I can do for my child?
If you can't manage the child's behavior, I would suggest, first of all, look what's going on in your home and in your life as a person. Is this home stable? Are we safe? Are we happy? Do we have the necessary food, water, shelter that we need for every day? If all those are met, then I would go to my physician and get some type of physical to rule out certain things, and then maybe a therapist or a psychologist to see if it's emotional or cognitive.
You just described Maslow's hierarchy of needs as I remember it from nursing school.
Yes.
So a child can't move on in life to love and belonging or to anything unless those basic needs are met. And a lot of families are really struggling with finances and jobs and transportation. How do those affect a child's ability to feel safe and secure?
A lot of parents don't understand that their kids understand what's going on. They sometimes pretend that maybe my child doesn't know that mom and dad are arguing. Maybe they don't know we're having trouble getting groceries or paying the bills. And the child gets more anxious because they see what's going on and they can feel it in the air and they can see their parents are tense, but no one's telling them what's going on. So now they have this amazing imagination and they're creating all kinds of scenarios where if the parent would just sit down and age appropriately explain, the child might actually calm down a little bit. There are ways the kid could help too, and I'm all for this because a lot of people say, no, don't put that pressure on the kids. The pressure's already there. If the family is struggling, the child is feeling it.
Yeah, Deb and I post a lot of articles around stress management and how that affects children on our social media, and we've come across several of them where it shows the kids' stress is higher than parental stress. And when parents are interviewed, they're like, well, what do they have to stress about? They don't have to have a job. They're not taking care of finances. They're not doing this. But like you said, they understand what's going on. They understand the tension or lack of money or whatever that is. And parents have to have a better way of recognizing that or looking at it, like you were saying.
I knew a kid that used to intercept the mail so that she could figure out the bills and then try to see when mom was getting paid and if everything was going to be okay. Yeah. So there's a lot of things kids we take for granted and think their world is all rainbows and unicorns, but they're very smart and they sit there and they try to figure out what's going on.
So if parents are struggling, there are tons of resources all over. There's reduced lunch at school. There are pantries around town. There are 211, I believe, is the call number for United Way, and that's almost in every city USA. What else could they do to help get themselves in a better position?
I believe the worst thing you could do is not to say anything. We have a lot of pride as adults, especially the older we get. We think we should be able to do everything on our own. And it's embarrassing because I should have it together by now. But there are so many people out there willing to help and wanting to help that if we just reach out to maybe a local church or the pantries, like you said, a lot of the times schools have tons of resources too. But you got to say something. If you don't say anything, no one can help you.
So they have to be an advocate for themselves and their children.
Yeah, you got to learn that.
If our readers want to give you a call or contact you about counseling services, how do they reach you?
They can reach me at 616-710-7368. That's my phone number.
Thanks for joining us today. Any last-minute recommendations you have or any last-minute thoughts?
Yeah. If you're one of these families with a lot of stress and finances are tight, summer is here. Go outside. Enjoy the free parks, the free beaches. Go for a walk with the dog and the kids and just get out of that house.
That's a great recommendation.
Awesome.
You can find our stress relieving tools at simplysuccessfulprogram.com/blog. Again, that's simplysuccessfulprogram.com/blog.
Thanks for listening.